Hello and welcome, guys. Today's Tuesday, March 31st, and this is day 2 of the Research Essay Week. Today we're going to be working on our actual outline. So yesterday you guys started that assignment, and today we're going to be finishing it. It is due technically tonight at midnight, so just want to make sure you get that done. Please email me if you have any questions. I'm available today from 9 until noon. So we just want to make sure we get that outline totally ready so that you guys can be in a good place to really start writing tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. So today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the research essay, making sure we understand it, and actually grading an example. So let's look at a couple things. So the first thing is that in terms of what we're going for, like what is this whole assignment about? So we're really looking at how can you have academic conversations with other sources and obviously tying those into your own thesis and your own thinking on the topic. So this is a task that's done in a lot of college classes where you're asked to look at what other people have done and incorporate their work into your own observations. So the first task is already kind of done. You guys did a good job. You read and you analyzed previously in the last unit. You guys looked at all your research, right? So you were reading all the sources and kind of figuring out what was good and what was necessary to make a good argument. So you've already pulled a lot of data. The other thing you need to keep in mind too is that yesterday we were supposed to have shared our research. So make sure that you go on Google Classroom and actually access that so that you can see other people's research as well and start to incorporate some of their findings. It might be that you just want to disagree with those findings, or it might be that those findings might help you deepen your own position. And that's really the next step, is to figure out, like, what is your position? You may have a really clear stance on the issue and you don't want to change it, or you may be thinking, you know what, I have a pretty clear understanding of where I want to go, but I'm going to incorporate a couple more points and it's going to deepen my current perspective. So you don't have to just do what you did for the debate. You can take whatever stance you want. It can be more nuanced. You can have a in these ways and in these ways I think this is what should happen kind of thesis. So please don't feel like you just have to repeat the same stance that was in your debate. You can get more specific and you can get more nuanced about it. Anyway, so once you've determined kind of where you want to go with it, what kind of stance you want to deal with, and then the next thing is that you really start to just have that academic conversation. So once you've incorporated other people's writing into what you're going to be doing, we're going to be working on that today and tomorrow. Just how do you talk about things in an academic way? So bringing up what they have to say and then really deciding for yourself, like, do I agree with this? Do I disagree with this? What do I think about it? And having that academic conversation, like, in these ways, this author had it right. In these other ways, this is maybe a little bit flawed, right? And so you having that critical kind of approach to information and deciding what you think is important and what you think is meaningful and what you think matters is really important for this. And then so finally, once you get done with sort of figuring out like what you're going to incorporate and what your position is, you basically have this sort of imagined conversation in an academic format where you are really exploring the issue and looking at your thesis and exploring it through multiple different points, looking at what other people have to say and like agreeing or disagreeing with what they have to say about it. You should also be incorporating counter arguments for this, right? So like looking at like, hey, this is what other people have said, but here's where they're wrong. So saying things like source A takes this position that's similar to mine, or they would oppose this position, but here's why I maintain that I'm correct. That's the kind of thinking we want to do here. It's where you're deciding like what's important and what's meaningful and what's true, all the while incorporating other people's research into that. So that's just a little bit about kind of the process of it. What I want to look at next is the actual rubric. You guys are going to use this rubric on Classroom. If you go to Classroom, you'll find under classwork there is an assignment where you're going to be posting on your own copy of the rubric. You're going to post by highlighting how the paper actually scores. So that's important to note. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Okay, I'll just pull it over. So that's important to note. You guys will have your own copy, and you're just going to highlight the parts that you think that the essay scores. Today we're going to be scoring the same essay you guys read yesterday. So I want you guys to go ahead and take a minute, go ahead and open up. The link is posted under the agenda. Just take a moment to actually read this essay and then score it on your copy on Classroom. So go ahead and pause this video for a second, and then you'll actually come back to it after you get done reading and scoring, and we can talk about like how would I score it and make sure we're on the same page about it. So go ahead and pause this video. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Go read this essay and give it a quick score on the rubric on Classroom. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back. I know you just took a minute to read this. I want to go over just a couple things and make sure we're on the same page. So we're looking at the introduction here. You can tell from the intro they're doing a lot of what you would expect a good writer to do with an intro, just kind of establishing the topic and explaining like why is this important, showing the relevance of it, and kind of just a little background on the question, like why is this a question, why is it important. Then you see they actually come to their thesis. This is a choice that they decided to make a really clear thesis up front. That's pretty typical for Western academic settings. So your professors will often require that. As you guys may have already kind of recognized, I'm open to that. Obviously, that's a good choice. But it's also with the research essay, I have seen some research essays that will actually introduce more of a question up front and then come to their actual thesis in the conclusion. And if that's a choice that you're wanting to make for your research project, I've seen good essays do that, and you're welcome to do so. But this one chose to go ahead and put it as the thesis is up front. In reality, standardized testing should not be banned because it's too valuable for education system, colleges, and also groups fighting for racial equality. So we're going to see how does this essay actually score. How does it do all the parts that you would want a good research essay to do? So it starts off with standardized tests are essential to college applications. And it goes into how college applications use this test and why it's important, talking about how College Board, what College Board says about it. Notice with this first quote, as College Board states, colleges use scores from these tests to help them make admissions decisions. Each college has its own admissions process and policies in these scores differently. Notice how there's no citation after this. So we know that this author is choosing to do, what, page numbers? So that's MLA. So right here we should see a page number. It should look something more like this, where they have the page number right after the quote, the period after the parentheses. This is for MLA. If this was going to be an APA, then you would have like the actual citation with the year right here. So it's MLA has the page number, and APA has the year. But this paper is sticking to MLA. So notice how they didn't put a cite here, so that's something to kind of keep in mind. They should have put a cite right there. If you're using a website, you can tell this person probably cited a lot from a website because they don't have a lot of different page numbers. They're all just one. So, and that's what you put. Like if you don't have a page number, it's just a website. Just hold that place with like a page number just by saying it's one. Like that's the page, it's one. It's because it's on, the internet. So that's that. So just kind of keep that in mind. This is the first kind of issue I noticed, is that they didn't have a cite here. They kind of missed a couple of cites. So we want to make sure that you're actually doing that. That's a big part of this whole process, is can you cite and cite correctly, so when you go to college or take any college classes, you're ready for that kind of experience. So notice how they're bringing up this College Board quote, and then they're explaining it. Then they come into Michelle Obama. Here's where they bring up their first address of a counter argument. Notice how this essay does this kind of throughout. They're always bringing up a counter argument and addressing it kind of as they go. I think that's a good strategy. So if you're thinking, how can I expand on my, debate outline? The best way to do that is to really think of like, what would the other people say, and address that kind of throughout. So you can have entire paragraphs where you're just point by point addressing, like, you might think this, but here's why that's wrong. And that can really help you deepen and flesh out your thinking, add that critical thinking, and like just make it a tighter essay. So this person's doing that here. They're talking about, standardized testing and how you can't just use standardized tests to regulate people or to monitor people's ability, right? But then they address like how that's not the only thing colleges are looking for. So they do a pretty tight example here, and they also respond to it. So in terms of counter arguments, so far so good. Like they're addressing what other people might say and addressing it with research, returning a response to that. The next thing I noticed with this next paragraph, they say not only are standardized tests essential in colleges accepting applicants, so nice transition here, the tests go deeper and uncover flaws and biases in our society. So notice they do have a transition from the last paragraph. Now we're into the next one. It's all about uncovering those flaws and biases. Notice here they have a large amount of people falsely argue that standardized testing causes racial and economic gaps. Notice how they're bringing up how other people might say this, but why they think they're wrong. this is again another instance where I think this paper can be pretty strong. Like, it's doing a good job of being like, other people say this, here's why they're wrong. They go on to do this multiple times. They bring up, you guys may have noticed Ms. Rumley was quoted in this one, kind of cool. So they notice how they're talking about what other people have to say and incorporating that, and then discussing how that relates to what they think, kind of weighing out the issue this way. So that's also pretty strong. Notice also as we come down, they quote from Leland Almager from the Boston Review, and how people, really strive for excellence, and that's really how this is working out for standardized tests. So they have a good quote here, nice citation. I noticed that they're able to cite. People on the other side of the argument do not see this as a reason schools shut down. They blame standardized tests. Notice how they're constantly kind of addressing the other side throughout. Again, I think that just makes it a stronger essay. The next thing I see is that down here they have recent studies have indicated charter schools. This whole section on charter schools really seems kind of tangential. It's like not related to their main topic, which is, the flaws that are in society. And it's just talking about how like charter schools are cheaper, and it doesn't really relate. So I would take this out. I think this is kind of an organizational flaw. Just something, it's a minor flaw, but it's something to kind of keep in mind. Make sure that like each paragraph is really addressing like that same point. If you're starting a whole new point, like start a whole new paragraph. Here they have a whole new point, and notice how they start talking about how teachers have unfair biases. That's like a whole nother point from the racial bias that we saw earlier. So I would really want to see them like make a new paragraph here. So in terms of organization, there's a couple little flaws. So far, it's not like totally impeding my ability to understand what's going on. But this is a pretty long paragraph with lots of flaws that they could talk about in multiple paragraphs instead of just one giant one. And then we get down here, and they're talking about IEPs and disabilities, and that's all kosher. Everything is cited, similar kind of style. It's a strong essay so far. And then we get down to their paragraph here. Standardized tests have many beneficial reasons for staying a part of education, but many people believe there are still reasons for taking them away. So they're just not done with addressing the counter argument here. And again, that just shows it's a strong essay in terms of critical thinking. So if you're going to address counter arguments throughout, that's recommended. But you could also address them like at the end, or you could start with the counter arguments at the beginning and just really kind of flesh those out. Notice with your outline, you're going to be expanding with other points as well. So you might be thinking like sub-points from the main points that you had for your debate case, and just kind of expanding and fleshing and according it all out. So think about debate case, but think about how do you expand that with multiple points, especially addressing the other side. Okay, good. They had just a couple flaws in terms of, just a couple little typos. You guys probably noticed there were some typos where this should be like an is, but it's an are. Things like that. It doesn't really impact my ability to understand it. And there wasn't too many of them. I think I found like 3 or 4. So just a couple little flaws like that I would just kind of take note of. The conclusion is really clear. It has a clear summary of all their arguments. And then we get to their works cited. You can see it's all organized alphabetically. Oh wait, it's not alphabetically. Oh no. So this has A's, and then it goes to an L, then we have a P. So this is a slight flaw with their works cited that we should probably take note of. So we've got just a couple little things kind of out, like you have a P here and then a K. So make sure that you actually alphabetize them. But the actual lineup of the sources, the way that it's formatted is correct. Make sure you're flushing your source citations through either EasyBib or Citation Machine to make sure that you have the correct citation. This is a big deal. A lot of professors will get really cranky and like give you a solid 10% off of your paper just from not having this done. For this, I would say I would just take note of the fact that they didn't alphabetize it, but everything else was solid. So it's a minor flaw, but it's still something to kind of keep in mind. So as we look at the rubric, let's check out how did this essay score. So for this essay, let me move this over. All right, so the essay on standardized testing, we're just giving it a quick score. We know that their thesis was strong. It was set up front. It expresses their ideas up front, and it was really clear. Then they go into, we have evidence, so we're looking at like how much evidence did they have, which I hope you guys would agree they had a lot of evidence. They definitely cited their sources, and had tons of details to enhance what they were talking about. So I gave them full credit on their evidence. I also gave them full credit on their ideas and explanation. I think what really made this strong was the way that they addressed the opposition kind of throughout and explained in really clear detail using research why they're ultimately right, weighing it out the whole time. So great job with their explanation. I thought that was pretty strong. When it came to organization, there were some minor flaws I think we talked about, so I gave them more of, you notice like minor revision here, so it's not excellent, but it's still pretty good. Overall, it didn't like impede from my ability to like follow what was happening, so they got a B on that. And they also got a B on transitions. There were some transitions, but I thought there could be a little bit more. Again, just minor revisions for those kind of connections between the paragraphs that could have been established. Word choice, they had mostly formal academic diction, just a couple little flaws, so they had mostly pretty good there. In terms of sentence variety and voice, their academic voice was strong throughout, and they had sentence like flow to their sentences, so they got full credit for that. And then we looked at mechanics, like just a couple of little errors. So 2 to 3 errors that still gets them like a pretty good score. A couple errors on their MLA citations, just on the works cited. They had one citation that was missing, and works cited was not alphabetized. So again, not horrible, not like a D or an F or anything. It's just more of a B for that. So as we look at the overall score, you can see how most of this translates into more of an upper, like at least a B, but they definitely got into that A range as well. So this would score roughly a 92. So we would just put like 180, what was it? 184. So that's what this one would score from my sort of vantage point. So 184, this would be kind of like a 92. I hope that you guys, if you're not completely on board with that, if you were like, oh, this is definitely more of a C, then we should talk and make sure we're on the same page. But if you're on the same page that it's at least a B, then I think at least we're in the same kind of range, which is good. I hope you guys understand kind of the expectations from looking at this. As we look at today, I just need you guys to finish up that outline. So we're looking at roughly 2 pages due by tonight at midnight. So I'll be checking those first thing in the morning. I'll be here from 9 until noon just answering questions. So if you guys have any questions, just feel free to email me and I'll get right back to you as you complete the extended essay outline. It looks kind of like this. I know we talked about this yesterday, but just to kind of give you a reminder, we're looking at doing put the thesis statement either up front, or if you want to put it at the end, just make sure you highlight it so I can see your thesis statement. Again, this person likes to do a little intro. That's kind of nice. But what you're really looking for, what I'm really looking for, is that you have your main points for each paragraph, and then the kind of details and examples you want to include. And make sure you're addressing the counter arguments either throughout or at least at some point, right, where the counterclaim kind of comes up. Okay, if you have any questions, please email me. I'm here, like I said. I miss you guys. Hope you're doing okay. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.